Alrighty, Chef Buck here, and today, boom, look at this. Cauliflower pizza crust. Talk about structural integrity. This is the best cauliflower pizza crust that won't fall apart. Boom, check it out. We're going to do Wasabi-Pineapple edition. Look at that. I thought for sure I was going to bust that on the floor. Can I do it again? Look at that. The brain. So, we got a nice fresh cauliflower. Going to use like 2 cups. So I'm only going to use the florets. You know, you don't have to use a food processor. You can if you want, but it's no necesito. So just run your cauliflower along your grater. It's going to make some nice kind of pop rocky sized pieces. So just using the florets, the stemmy pieces, I'm going to save and use that for soup or something. So I got about 2 cups of cauliflower grated up, and this is what I have left of that. It was kind of a good sized piece of head of cauliflower. And I've already got my skillet heated up because cauliflower has a very high water content, so we want to dry this out a little bit before we make our crust. And hear that? You hear it sizzling? That's because it's wet, because that cauliflower has a lot of water in it. So we're going to put it in a skillet. And
no oil.
No oil, no butter, nothing in here. Just a non-stick skillet and my cauliflower. And we're just going to stir it around. In fact, I probably got it a little too high. I'm going to turn it down. And we're just going to stir it. See that steam coming out of there? That's that moisture evaporating. We're just going to do this for about 10 minutes. You know, give it an occasional stir. Let some of that moisture cook off. But we're not trying to cook it. You know, you don't want it to be sizzling too much. You don't want to cook it down. You know, you don't want to color it up. We're just heating it up, try to heat some of that moisture out of there. You don't hear it sizzling now. You can still see some of the steam coming off of there, but it's no longer sizzling. It's dried out a little bit. I've been doing it for about 7 minutes right now, 8 minutes actually. But I'm going to go ahead and set it aside while this cools off, because we're going to want it to cool down before we go on to the next step. But while this cools, I'm going to grate the cheese. I'm going to use a mix of asiago and romano cheese. But use a hard cheese, because it's going to add a nice flavor, but the hard cheese is going to, when it cools down, when it becomes part of the crust, it'll solidify a little bit more than a soft cheese. Don't use a soft cheese. Hard cheese is going to help with your structural integrity. Alrighty. 1 cup grated hard cheese.
Dun, dun, dun.
Alrighty, so we got a pan. We're going to bust up, boom, 1 egg. And I'm going to add in my grated cheese. And we're just going to mix up the egg and cheese really well. And I'm not going to add in any salt and pepper or anything like that. Boom, my cauliflower's been sitting on the stove. And it's cooled down quite a bit. It's still a little warm. And it's still a little wet. It's not completely dry. But because we sauteed it on the stove for a little bit, you know, and steamed off some of that moisture, it's a lot drier than it was. And that's going to make all the difference. Alright, so we're just going to add in our little bit of cauliflower. So basically 2 cups of cauliflower to 1 cup of grated cheese and 1 egg. Alrighty, so we're getting our egg and cheese and cauliflower mixed up really well. And that's really all there is to this crust. Just a little bit of cheese and cauliflower and egg. Alright, so we're going to grab our pizza pan. And this is key for making your cauliflower crust. Make sure you use some parchment paper. And when you reach in your cabinet and grab out your parchment paper, don't grab the wax paper. You know, I think sometimes people accidentally use the wax paper. You know, and that's just the beginning of a very sad cauliflower crust pizza story. Alright, so we're going to put our parchment paper on our pan. And we're just going to take our little mixture, our cauliflower, cheese, and egg mixture, and pour that out onto our parchment paper. Now we're just going to smash it all together. We're going to spread it out. About a 1/4 inch thick. You know, it's going to make like a 10-inch pie, like I said, but you want the edges to kind of be the same thickness as the rest of the pie. You don't want it to be too thin, because it'll cook up It'll cook up quicker around the edges if it's thin, and then it'll darken up and be unattractive. So there we have it. Boom. On parchment paper, our cauliflower crust. You can see the individual pieces of cheese and cauliflower in there, but when we bake it up, you know, it's kind of going to all meld together into one solid piece. So there you have it. Now we're going to slide it in the oven. I've got my oven preheated at 400 degrees. Slide it in there on the center rack. Boom. We'll let it cook for about 10 minutes. Then we'll take a look at it and see what's going on. We'll take a peek. So you see it's starting to come together, you know, that cheese and everything is starting to melt. So it no longer looks like a bunch of little pieces together. But you know, we want it to get more color on it. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it around, slide it back in here. We'll let it go for another 5 minutes. Alright, so we've let it go another 6 minutes. So the total cooking time for this so far has been 16 minutes at 400 degrees. But you know, ovens vary, so you definitely want to keep an eye on it. But this is kind of the color we're looking for. But I'm going to go ahead and leave this alone right now. We're going to let it cool down a little bit before we try to take it up from the parchment paper. Alrighty, so we've let our crust cool down for about 10 minutes. So it's still kind of warm, but you don't want to fool with it when it first comes out of the oven. You don't want to try to pick it up. You need it to solidify a little bit. But this one's kind of not stuck at all, which is ideally what you want. But as you can see, boom, there you have it. Look at that structural integrity. And it's still kind of warm. Nice. Yeah, it's muy fantastico. But that's the color you want. But here's the thing with the cauliflower pizza crust. See that? It's very flexible. It doesn't have any dough in it. It doesn't have any flour. It's not going to crisp up. It's not going to have that crunch. You know? It's not going to have a cauliflower taste, you know, because we got all that cheese in there. You know, but and plus you're going to put your pizza toppings on here. It's going to taste very much like a pizza. But if you want a nice crunchy pizza, cauliflower pizza crust isn't what you're looking for. Now our pizza crust is ready, so we can throw our toppings on here and get to the other part of this pizza making process. So what we're making tonight is a wasabi-pineapple pizza. So delicious, so simple, doesn't take a lot of ingredients. We like to use a can. For a pizza this size, we're using 1 can of chunked pineapple. You know, don't use crushed because you want some nice pieces. In fact, I cut these pieces in half, you know, to double the size, so it's not that big. And then we're using just some creamy wasabi. You know, this is what we use. It's almost like a wasabi mayonnaise. But before you even start this process, you know, what you want to do is you want to go ahead and combine your pineapple and your wasabi together. We just got 1 can of the chunked pineapple, and then about 2 tablespoons of the wasabi, and just let those flavors kind of coalesce there. We got our homemade pizza sauce. Why buy pizza sauce? That's crazy. But you know, you want to make it, you know, a few days in advance. You know, just keep a jar of marinara in your fridge all the time. And this, camera girl, I almost needed you to open that for me. You know, like I said, the edges of it will darken up and become unattractive, you know, if it cooks for too long. So it's good to spread your sauce out as close to the edge as you can. It'll keep it from getting overly dark and unattractive around the edges. Then we're just going to spread our chunks of pineapple around. I'm not a pineapple pizza guy at all, but I love this pizza. Do we want to put onions on here? So we're going to throw a little onion on here, but we don't always put onion on here. Sometimes we just have the pineapple and wasabi mixture. And I've still got the oven at 400 degrees. And we're gonna let this go probably for about 5 minutes. And then we'll add a little bit of mozzarella cheese to the top of that. All right, it's smelling fantastico. I'm gonna go ahead and throw a little bit of mozzarella on here. Might be putting on a little too much cheese, but that's okay. We'll live. CG wants a little more Italian seasoning on the top, so we're going to top it with a little ground Italian seasoning, and we're going to throw it back in the oven, melt that cheese up. Melt that cheese! Let it go for another 5 minutes, I think. Boom! Our finito cauliflower crust pizza. Man, we got a lot of cheese on there. We really put a lot of pineapple too. See how the edge starts to darken up? It's actually not too bad on this one, but sometimes it almost looks black.
Oh,
you know, the longer you cook it. You know, just the edge where the cauliflower is, the longer it cooks. But there you have it. Cauliflower crust pizza, wasabi pineapple edition. You know, if you've never had a wasabi pineapple pizza, give this a go because you're going to love it. Let us know what you think and bon appetit. And if you want to print this recipe, you know, I have a link down below. Go to myfoodchannel.com. Print all of our recipes. Subscribe if you're not a subscriber. We'll see you in the future.